The Grandview Hotel, a gilded cage for the city's elite. Usually, it blurred Jace Miller right into its polished backdrop. Tonight, though, the Armitage Corporation's gala shimmered with all that fabricated joy. 500 guests, drowning in champagne and casual cruelty. Jace, 28, invisible in his black vest and tie, moved through the opulent ballroom, pouring wine, clearing plates, his mind already miles away, locked on that auto mechanics course, the one that promised a different future. He lived for that future, crammed into a tiny Chicago apartment, fueled by whatever odd jobs he could find, unloading trucks, delivering packages, patching drywall, anything to keep the lights on. Survival had become a practiced art, and emotion, well, that was a luxury he simply couldn't afford. Then he saw her, Isa Armitage, 24, daughter of the CEO, sat alone in a quiet corner. Her deep blue gown was elegant, breathtaking, really. But her posture screamed retreat. Shoulders hunched, chin low, hands clasped so tight in her lap, and that scar, thick, jagged, a brutal reminder, running from her temple down to her jaw. It stood out sharply against her pale skin. Impossible to ignore. He heard the whispers first, a cluster of young men in sharp suits, chuckling low, their words dripping venom. Armitage has all that money. And his daughters. Damn, even the top surgeons couldn't fix that. Who'd ever ask her to dance? She should have just stayed home. Jace watched Isa flinch, her knuckles turning white, her lips trembling. She heard every word. Graham Armitage, at the head table, stiffened. But he kept that perfect smile locked in place. Power, Jace realized, came with its own cages. The orchestra swelled, sliding into a slow, aching ballad. Couples drifted toward the dance floor, and something old stirred inside Jace. An instinct from the service he couldn't shake. Don't leave someone behind. He set his empty tray down, squared his shoulders, and walked straight toward her. The hum of the ballroom stuttered. Isa didn't look up, bracing herself for whatever cruelty came next. Are you all right this evening? His voice came out soft, barely more than a murmur. Her head lifted slowly. Wary hazel eyes, shadowed with exhaustion. The scar looked more pronounced up close, pulling slightly at her skin. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. A depth that made the whole room feel suddenly thin, superficial. May I have this dance? The words hung there. A collective inhale rippled from the nearby tables. Isa stared, completely bewildered. You're the waiter, she whispered, her gaze flicking to his uniform, to the invisible line between them. Yes, Jace said, his eyes never wavering. And if you say no, I'll apologize. Walk away. Go back to my duties. But if you say yes, it would be my honor. Her fingers tightened on her napkin. I don't want to get you in trouble. You're not. He answered, calm, steady. You're just sitting alone, in a room where you shouldn't have to be. That one sentence slipped past her guard. A tremor ran through her. Tears welled up, then blinked fiercely away. She searched his face, hunting for mockery, for a trick, found none, and slowly, very slowly, she placed her hand in his. The ballroom fell utterly silent. He helped her to her feet, her gown whispering softly. Her hand felt cool, trembling. But she didn't pull away. He led her to the very edge of the dance floor, placed his hand lightly on her back, keeping that polite distance. Slow, simple steps. She was stiff at first, eyes glued to the floor, breath shallow. "Look at me," he murmured, just above the music. "Not them, just me." Her gaze lifted, locked with his. In her eyes he saw fear. Yes, but also a bone-deep weariness, years of carrying too much. The scar pulled taut as she moved, but Jace didn't flinch. He just held her steady, guiding her gently, slowly, almost without noticing. Her shoulders eased, her hand relaxed in his. A small, fragile smile tugged at her lips, lighting something quiet and real in her eyes. Graham Armitage rose abruptly from the head table, shoulders shaking, tears streaming freely down his face. His daughter, smiling. The room shifted, kindness breaking the script wide open. As the song ended, Issa's breath finally steadied. "Thank you," she whispered, voice catching. "You were the one who stood up." She smiled again, fuller this time, and for one heartbeat, the ballroom's cold gold felt warmer, almost real. Then, as Jace stepped back, something slipped from his inner vest pocket, clattering lightly onto the polished wood. A faded blue handkerchief, embroidered with tiny gold flowers and initials. Graham's eyes locked onto it. He strode forward, picked it up with trembling hands, face draining of color. Where did you get this?" The entire ballroom went deathly still, every breath loud. "My name is Jace Miller," he said, voice steady despite the hammering in his chest. "I served with your brother, Elliot Armitage." Graham's knees buckled. Issa gasped, stepping closer, hand reaching instinctively to steady her father. "Dad?" Graham didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on Jace, tracing the faded stitching. "This was our mother's. She made it for him before he deployed. Elliot. He never came back." His words cracked open, raw. A decade-old wound bleeding fresh. Jace nodded, memories flooding back. Desert dust, roar of engines. The ambush. I was under his command. Our vehicle hit an IED, flipped, caught fire. I was trapped. The room held its breath. Elliot didn't hesitate. He pulled me free, dragged me clear. But as he went back for the driver, another explosion. He didn't make it. Graham sank into the nearest chair, handkerchief clutched to his chest. I waited over 10 years. Reports were vague. I didn't know if he was alone, if he suffered. Jace knelt, voice low, clear. He wasn't alone. I was right there, holding pressure on his wounds. He was in pain. Yes, but he was calm. He talked about your mom, her embroidery, and you. He said, "Tell Graham not to blame himself, and to live kindly. For both of us." Graham wept openly. No longer the CEO, just a brother. Broken open, Issa knelt beside him, arm around his shoulders, eyes glistening, looking at Jace in a whole new way. "You were there, with Uncle Elliot." He nodded. "He saved my life. I've carried that handkerchief ever since. Like a debt. I always meant to find his family." Graham wiped his face, stood, voice thick. "You've brought my brother home tonight. Thank you for being there when I couldn't." Issa rose too, hand lingering on her father's arm, glancing at her scar. then back at Jace. A quiet understanding passed between them. Both marked, both survivors. Then Graham turned to the room, posture straightening, gaze sweeping the stunned faces. He zeroed in on the smirking young men. I heard what you said tonight about my daughter. You called her broken. You laughed at her pain. Security. Escort these gentlemen out. Now. Guards moved in. Quiet. Efficient. The men stammered, then vanished. He didn't stop there. He turned to the women whose sympathetic whispers had cut just as deep, and those kind remarks, laced with pity, as if it's a gift. You spoke of my daughter like she was a flawed exhibit. He took a deep breath, addressing everyone. Tonight, in this room full of power and privilege, a waiter, a man none of you even noticed, gave my daughter more than all my wealth ever could. He gave her respect. He chose kindness. When the rest of you chose silence, a flush crept up Jace's neck, but he stayed quiet, sensing this wasn't about him. Then Issa stepped forward, leaving her father's side. She stood taller now, facing the crowd. Her voice wavered, then grew stronger. I want to say something. For 3 years, since the accident that took my mom and left me with this, she gestured lightly to her scar. I've let it define everything. I've hidden, felt unworthy. Let words like yours turn me into a shadow. Tonight, I thought I'd just endure it, like always. But this man, she nodded toward Jace. He didn't look at me like a scar. He looked at me like a person, and because of that, I stood up. A murmur rippled through the crowd, then applause. Hesitant at first, building, rising. People stood. Graham watched her, pride swelling in his chest. He clapped a hand on Jace's shoulder. You've chosen decency. When everyone else looked away, that's rarer than any deal I've ever closed. The ballroom's artificial sparkle gave way to something raw, something real. Jace tried to fade back, but Graham and Issa drew him in, not as staff, but as someone who'd carried a piece of their lost family home. As the night wound down, Graham motioned Jace to a quieter corner. Jace, holding the handkerchief gently, I want to make you an offer. A position at Armitage, entry level. Full training. You deserve better than trades and tips. The opportunity hung there. A ladder up, but it didn't sit right. I appreciate that. Mr. Armitage, truly, it's generous, but I've got my own path. That vocational course, auto mechanics. I want to build something with my hands. On my term, a corporate job. It wouldn't feel right. Graham studied him, then nodded. Respect clear in his eyes. Fair enough. You're not one for handouts. Let me adjust the offer then. I'll sponsor your tuition, no strings. Consider it settling a family debt. Elliot saved you. You've given us closure. Jace hesitated, pride battling practicality. If it's truly no strings, then yes, thank you, and I'll pay it forward. Live kindly, like he said. Graham shook his hand, firm, grateful. You've already started. You pulled my daughter out of the shadows tonight. That's worth more than any sponsorship. Issa stepped closer. Less the CEO's daughter now. More just a young woman finding her footing again. I don't know how to thank you properly. You don't have to, Jace said quietly. You just need to step out of that corner more often. She laughed, light, genuine, easier said than done. But tonight, it feels possible. She paused, eyes searching his. If you're ever free, maybe a day or two from now, I'd like to buy you a coffee, somewhere normal, just to talk. The invitation caught him off guard, in the best way. I'd like that. The orchestra's last violinist drew out a few lingering notes. Isa tilted her head, a playful spark flickering in her eyes. One more dance for the road. The floor stretched wide and empty now. Golden lights softer, private. He offered his hand. This time, no audience. Just faint music and the quiet rhythm of steps. Her touch felt warmer, less hesitant. Her scar caught the light, but it was only part of her. As they turned, she relaxed completely, her head resting briefly against his shoulder. A moment of simple, unexpected trust. This time, she whispered. I know it is. Graham watched from a distance, the handkerchief tucked safely away. His face finally at peace. The ballroom door swung shut, leaving only echoes of change.